with all those games, like you walk into a room and there's like a desk, and you go up to the desk and you open the drawer and there's nothing in the drawer, and then you close the drawer and you open the next drawer and there's a letter, and then the letter pops up, and then you're supposed to read the whole page. And then the page goes away, and then you read the back side of it, and then you put the page away, and you open the next drawer, and there's nothing in that drawer. And then there's a cabinet, and you open the cabinet, and there's nothing in the cabinet. You close the cabinet, you go out, you go into another room, and there's like an old Victorola, and it's playing that old timey The Shining music, and I'm like, this is every one of these fucking games. And then an hour into the game, some like a kid is in a mirror or something, and you're like, oh my god, the kid in the mirror, like and subscribe. And I'm like, I fucking hate this.
Time to talk about games played by Ryan and Mike. A modern, a retro video game show. Yes, we talk about games and sometimes other stuff like Star Trek. It's a blast, our gaming podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Talk About Games, the show where Mike and I each choose a game book club style and talk about it.
That's what we do here. I pick games that I've been streaming on Twitch, and we talk about games. So it's October time. At least it will be when this comes out.
It's totally October right now, Mike.
This is
whatever you're talking about.
This is like when people watch like late night shows. You watch, whatever, The Tonight Show, and you're like, oh, it's like it's filmed at like dinner time, but you're not supposed to know that, It's August.
I was just carving pumpkins with my family.
Right? And
I was thinking about the old jack-o'-lantern and just what it means, life, death, day, night.
The good old jack-o'-lantern. Those are great. I've been seeing those all over my neighborhood. Everything's set up in my neighborhood for Halloween, and it's just so. I love the October era.
Everyone is having pumpkin spice lattes.
Yeah,
it's amazing, and all those classic decorations.
It's actually
It's August,
and it's like hurricane season.
It's hurricane season. It's 95 degrees out.
And I'm thinking about how nice it would be if it actually was October right now.
A house was just destroyed on my block in a tornado. Like, no joke. I got a alert on my phone that was literally like, yo.
Yeah.
The alert on my phone is like, go in the basement now, 3 exclamation points.
Was it like the Wizard of Oz and there's like the guy going by on the boat? Like
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. But then the next morning we look outside and the house, the roof is just ripped off. And it was maybe less than like a quarter to half a mile from my house, like right in the same neighborhood.
Well, I was going to talk about how nice the October was, but now I'm like depressed.
You're like, yeah.
I'm like, where do I go from that?
Right.
So yeah, Halloween's cool.
I love it.
Yeah, it's the costumes and everything.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna be a mummy.
We're bringing up all this because we haven't said one fucking word yet about video games, and this is supposed to be a video game podcast. So for all you guys listening right now, waiting for the video game part, I'm going to get to that right now.
Good segue.
You like that? So this, I'm like, let's get to the fucking video game part of this shit.
Yeah.
All right. So this time of year, everybody starts breaking out the horror games, YouTubers, everything turns into horror, everything. And sometimes I feel like it's like almost like a little overboard. Can't we enjoy horror movies and horror games like all year?
Oh yeah.
I just throwing that out there. But anyway, since it is this time of year, I wanted to throw out some games that I like to play and always like to play. I mean, it should be obvious the kind of stuff that I do. I do my retro games. But as far as like modern stuff, I really like Dead Space.
Yeah.
I don't know if you played through Dead Space at all, but that's a great like horror game that everybody should play. And I think they're making a new like remaster of it.
So Dead Space, it's like Event Horizon, like that movie, but it's in space, like that kind of thing.
You're trapped on a ship, in space, and you pretty much you're like one of the last people alive, and you have to go through and pretty much fix up the ship and get to the different spots in the ship to like kind of survive and like make it through. And you're constantly there's like people you're talking to, and there are other crew members. And I just feel like when you're playing the game, it's like, why doesn't the guy over there who's on my side, why doesn't he do anything?
Right.
Like the dude standing there is like, could you go down to the other side of the ship and fix the power conduit or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, what are you gonna do? Stand in that same spot?
It's like
the
Chief
whole
O'Brien wouldn't do this.
Right.
He'd go fix the conduit.
Yeah, well, my character should do something and help, but why does that guy get to stand there and do nothing?
Right.
Because you're the player, and I guess there wouldn't be a game, whatever.
Because then there wouldn't be a video game.
Because then there wouldn't be a video game.
Right.
Anyway, but Dead Space is a great game, and it's something I really like about it is it actually there's monsters that you fight in it. Where if you're playing Doom, let's say, and an imp comes up to you, it's not scary. It's just like a sprite. You shoot them. It's whatever. But in Dead Space, the actual like creatures are very organic, and some of them are really fucking gross. And I found myself the first time I played, I was like, not almost wanting to like look away. And I've edited like Monster Madness for years. I've seen all the gore, but it's like really gory, and that's something that I personally need with horror games and horror movies and horror content, especially at this point, because I'm totally desensitized to horror movies and games. So for anything to get any kind of response out of me is a good thing. So I recommend to everybody, if you haven't play Dead Space.
So a game that I played a long, long time ago, but definitely, made me think a little bit, was a game called Hollow Man. Now, it was on a lot of different systems, but I played it on Dreamcast. Mm-hmm. And Hollow Man is interesting because you are
I'm just thinking there was like a 90s movie
there's like
Hollow Man.
There's like an Invisible Man, Hollow Man thing. But in Hollow Man, you're like a guy who gets sent to hell.
Okay.
And you go through like the layers of hell. And you fight like a lizard king. You fight all these like fantastic creatures.
The Lizard King.
But you're in hell. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
So... But in Hollow Man, the thing that is most like puts you on edge isn't like the horror, like you're being stalked or something like that. There's a lot of people, because you're in hell, they're like suffering.
Yeah.
And they like call out to you, and it's all voice acted.
Right.
Like, say, help me, save me. And the dude's like chopped in half. It's like, dude, I'm not saving you. You're ahead. Like, what am I gonna do?
Right.
And then there are like the music is very just like atmospheric and stirring.
I have actually not even heard of this game. Where do you play this, and what year did it come out?
It's a Dreamcast game.
Oh, it's Dreamcast.
Like I said,
okay.
yeah. So it's 3D.
Okay.
It's like platforming. You unlock things like jumping.
Okay.
It's not a Metroidvania, but you unlock like capabilities to your character as you progress.
Okay.
But it's cool because it's not like there's a lot of like medieval stuff, but you have a gun.
Okay.
Which is neat. I think it would be a cool game to stream because nobody talks about Hollow Man or anything like that. But I remember it being pretty atmospheric and cool.
Okay, that one totally went by my radar, so that's a good pick. I mean, I'd feel stupid to bring up the games like Doom. Everybody's played Doom and stuff like that. I'm trying to think of something else that I'm doing all this. If you can't tell off the top of my head,
I have notes. Everybody,
yeah,
I'm ready.
They didn't get. I don't do any of the editing or the thumbnails or any of that stuff. They didn't give me. I don't get a fucking laptop, so I got to do this shit. He's got all his fucking notes. He just gets to read. I got to do this off the top of my head. So let's see. What's the horror game? I don't know. There's like Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween and stuff like that. But those games, like, they're not. Okay, listen. I'm the biggest, like, I love Atari.
Yeah.
A lot of people are like, why do you even play Atari these days? I still say there's some games that you can only experience on Atari that you can't get those experiences anywhere else. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Halloween, they're not good games.
Right.
Like, I can't even really think of much horror that I even care about. People say Haunted House, I guess. But,
so
yeah, there's not a lot with Atari for horror.
I'm going to go with the 2D game, but it's a newer game, and it's one that we covered on Talk About Games before, or on Mike and Ryan, or one of the shows that we did. Lakeview Cabin.
One of our failed experiments.
One of our failed YouTube experiments.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Lakeview Cabin is a 2D game that has multiple chapters. The game starts, you are in a video store, a theater, and there are marquees overhead of all. It's Lakeview Cabin 1, 2, 3, right? So it's supposed to be like a horror series. And it's actually a puzzle game. But it's a puzzle game that's pretty terrifying because the stakes are really high. The first one is like a Friday the 13th type situation.
That's what I remember seeing.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think when we played it, there was only the first one.
I think so, yeah.
Right? But now there's several.
Okay.
The second one is Texas Chainsaw, and
I never saw any of that.
In like the
yeah.
wood, there's like the wood shed and all the like saws and
Okay.
stuff, which is pretty crazy. But what's interesting is if you do everything right on the first two, and you set it up right, and you defeat. There's actually 3 bosses in that first Friday the 13th. There's the Jason looking guy.
Right, which I saw that. Yeah.
There's like his father. There's like a guy with a gun.
Yeah.
Like a bad guy. And then there's like the Lady of the Lake.
Okay.
And the Lady of the Lake will like she turns into like a creature and
So it's
comes after
basically
you.
like Jason's mother or something.
Yeah, exactly. So that's all in there. And but the title screen, that theater, there's something in the sewer. There's like a secret baddie that can come after you. And you're like going in the bathroom and looking in the vents, looking for guns and things to fight. So even the title screen is a problem. So this is a game I always come back to. I always find something new. It's got like a Maniac Mansion style control where you have like a bunch of kids and you want to position them, like hide them behind trees and stuff like that.
You swap to the other character.
Yeah. And you could do funny things like they break open sodas or they can go into bed.
It's a fun game.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's cool. So that's a go-to for me.
Sure. I mean, go-tos for me, you know, if we're going to, I'll jump into NES now. Like, I love, like, Nightmare on Elm Street on NES. You know, people say, you know, that game was made by Rare. People make fun of it because it's LJN, but that's actually a very good game. I was able to beat that one time by the skin of my teeth. I remember I had 1 health bar left, and I was able to fucking beat that game. That's a very difficult game, and it's very particular in a lot of the things you have to do. But also, I don't know if I could recommend it, but I had fun with it. You're gonna laugh, but Fester's Quest.
Oh yeah? How can you play that game? I'm sorry. Why is that any good? It sucks. It's trash.
I will tell you why.
Okay, I'm listening.
All right, so there is a major problem to that game. And the major problem that I find is that it doesn't have any checkpoints.
Yeah.
That's a major flaw.
Yes, it is.
Absolutely. But where the fun can be had is knowing the difference between the blue and there's like blue and red drops that the enemies do. You kill them. If you power your guy all the way up, you get an awesome gun. It's almost like in Quake with the nail gun. It's basically like you get that nail gun. If you downgrade your weapon, that's when the game sucks. Because there's one particular gun where the gun curves into the wall.
And it goes around the enemies or it hits the wall and can't even come at them.
And it sucks.
Yeah.
So to have any fun with Fester's Quest, you have to keep the upgraded top weapon. If you have that, it's not that bad of a game. It's got good music. It's got pretty good graphics. The atmosphere is cool in it. But if you play it where you got that stupid fucking gun that goes into the wall, it's gonna be the worst game you've ever played. Because imagine playing Contra, but you can only shoot the floor. That's Fester's Quest if you don't understand how to play it.
There's a game on the NES that I feel very similarly about.
Okay, what?
And that is Friday the 13th. Mm-hmm. And I have told you this before, but I've put more thought into it for today. So Friday the 13th, the biggest problems are the map, the cabins, and the where the fuck do you go with the, right? If Friday the 13th you got rid of the cabins and had the cabin fights be like in the game with the characters. If the map made more sense.
So you're saying like there's a good game in there, but it needs
It's
to be
like a few
fixed.
things.
Yeah.
Like if somebody came to me and they were like, I would be honored and would love if someone came and was like, fix LJN Friday the 13th. I'd be like, yes, sir. And it would be awesome. Right? And, we talk about like the stuff in the nerd, like the rock versus the dagger and all of this. You give like a bunch of different power-ups, or you give each of the kids have a different thing.
Yeah.
And maybe some of them are crappy, but, some of them are really good.
Right.
I still like the lighting the torches, lighting the fireplaces. Like that's kind of neat.
Right.
But imagine if each of those cabins had a cool little like platformy thing.
I know people that speedrun that game on Twitch, and like there is a small like community of people that like really love that game. And so I have yet to get to the point with that game where there was a lot of games where I early on with like the nerd videos, I considered they're just bad, whatever. And then I went and played them through like later and then started to understand them better. And I was like, oh, wait a second, this isn't such a bad game. It's just that I didn't understand it.
Yeah.
And that's happened to me with a lot of games. And I haven't done it yet with Friday the 13th, but I have a feeling that if I were to like master that game the way speedrunners do, maybe not that good, but like get really good at it, I probably would not think it's a bad game, but I just haven't done it yet.
Yeah. I also think that Maniac Mansion needs a remaster because I think Maniac Mansion is perfect environmental storytelling. I think it's better than Monkey Island. I think it's better than Full Throttle. I think it's the best. Like
it's interesting when you get into like Maniac Mansion, and I mentioned Dead Space. These are both like they're heavy on sci-fi.
Yeah.
But there's like the horror elements to it too. And yeah, Maniac Mansion, there's like, you put the hamster in the microwave and stuff like that. There's like horror things, but a lot of it's like UFOs and, it's fitting though for...
It's in the realm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what's a really good horror game that I feel like gets overlooked is that... The Haunting of Poltergeist. You ever play that?
Oh, for Genesis.
Yeah. That one's cool because I feel like it's got a really neat game system. I've never seen another game like it where you're like a Beetlejuice kind of character, and you go into a house and you have to haunt the people out of the house to get them out of the house, and you do that by going inside. You make the character go like maybe in the couch, and then the couch turns into a monster or something and scares the person out of the room, and they go from room to room, and eventually you get them out of the house, and once you clear everybody out of the house, then you move on to the next house. And I really like that game largely, I guess, for the animations. It reminds me of
I was about to say the animations are unbelievable.
The Star Wars chess game.
Yeah.
Do you like chess?
I do.
I do too. I'm not good at it, but I like it. It's fun. I have fun with it.
I was in the chess club, man. Straight up. I was in it. But I was only in it for 1 year, but it was a good year for me in chess, let me tell you.
Have you ever played Star Trek 3-dimensional chess?
I haven't, but when I was a kid, I would see it in like the back of magazines, and I'd be like,
I had it.
Oh, did you?
I could never get anybody to play it.
So
I could unfortunately, you wouldn't believe that I couldn't get any friends to come over and play Star Trek chess with me.
Why not?
Because if you're a person that wants to play Star Trek chess, you don't have any fucking friends. I could have played it with you.
You could
Where
have.
were you?
I just want one more thing I want to say about.
I want that. We're gonna get it, and I'm gonna put it on the table for these videos.
Dude, we need it.
I'll get it. I will get it for the show.
Yeah, it's got to go there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good. We need that. We need the like Ractigino cups.
Yeah,
and the
I want that shit,
like,
dude. Oh, I know what I want to talk about on this fucking show. The problem with our show is that Ryan and I could also do another podcast solely about Star Trek. And so I know we talk a lot about Star Trek, and I'm like looking at the 18 different fucking cameras that we have in this room. So if we talk a lot about Star Trek, it's because we could do another show about Star Trek. Anyway, so getting back to horror games, I mean, there's what are we gonna do? Like list every horror game? You got another one? What's another good horror game?
Okay, so there's the last one I have to talk about because my Halloween resolution I have right here is I would like to play and beat Clock Tower for Super Famicom.
Okay.
Because just the idea of, having to evade this dude with big hedge clippers chasing me around this house just seems cool.
Yeah.
It seems cool. I think it's probably in the realm of like Poltergeist, like you said, like it's like a twist on horror.
Yeah.
Right? Because you're trying to escape and go around. I also enjoyed the episode that you and I did on Layers of Fear. Mm-hmm. Which was the walking around. You walk around the house and it changes and it's creepy.
So games like that. There's a million games like that now, and I feel like a lot of them are made because of YouTube and streamers. So they go, "Oh my god, the thing popped out" or whatever. I don't really like the jump scare stuff, but with Layers of Fear, I like the paintings.
Yeah.
And the way the game like looked and everything, that's what kept me going with that. But typically, I don't tend to care for those kind of games because what I find with all those games, like you walk into a room and there's like a desk, and you go up to the desk and you open the drawer and there's nothing in the drawer, and then you close the drawer and you open the next drawer and there's a letter, and then the letter pops up, and then you're supposed to read the whole page. And then the page
back
goes away, and then you read the back side of it, and then you put the page away, and you open the next drawer, and there's nothing in that drawer. And then there's a cabinet, and you open the cabinet, and there's nothing in the cabinet. You close the cabinet, you go out, you go into another room, and there's like an old Victorola, and it's playing that old timey The Shining music, and I'm like, this is every one of these fucking games. And then an hour into the game, some like a kid is in a mirror or something, and you're like, oh my god, the kid in the mirror, like and subscribe. And I'm like, I fucking hate this.
In the games that we did mention, we talked about a lot of Electronic Arts titles, and not many people think of LucasArts. We did talk about Electronic Arts titles, but we talked about a lot of LucasArts titles, and you don't think of LucasArts as a horror.
No, because you think of Star Wars.
Yeah, right. But we talked about a lot of them, so that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, because you don't think about it.
No, you don't.
Yeah. Thanks. That's great.
That's great, Ryan.
What games are we talking about?
We're talking about Quake today.
Yeah.
So I guess I'll go. It would make sense for me to go first because I played the original Quake. So let me go through my story about this. So in the 90s, I had 2 different PCs. I remember I had Windows 92 and...
You mean 95? There was no Windows 92.
I always get in trouble for this. I'm sorry. Windows 3.1.
Yes.
But I say Windows 92 because it was 1992.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
So Windows 3.1? It wasn't 3.0?
He's doing that. Actually, you're correct.
Yeah.
There was no Windows 92.
For Workgroups 3.11. Network support.
It was Windows 3.1, and there was fucking Solitaire on there.
There was, and it goes.
I love that sound.
It's good.
Ski free, all that stuff. Anyway, back in that era, I played Wolfenstein and Spear of Destiny and Doom 2, and then I play a lot of LucasArts games and Sierra games.
Yeah.
All
King's
that kind of
Quest.
Stuff. King's Quest. I think I played 5 or 6, one of those.
Right.
Anyway, there was a lot of that kind of stuff, and unfortunately, I used to go to, it was like Costco or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember on the weekends, and they would have a bin of like cheap PC games.
Yeah.
And I'd go on the weekends, and I'd get to get one.
Right.
And then I'd bring it home, and that would be the game. And sometimes it was cool, and other times I picked wrong, and because you didn't know.
You pick like they have like shovelware. It's like, oh, it's a cool cover, but then it's like
I was going by
not.
the cover. I had no idea.
Yeah.
So I'd come home, and sometimes I'd get a good one, but a lot of times they weren't good. And that's what I would do. And then if I wanted to get a PC game back then, the other option, I used to go to Electronics Boutique back in like 90, 91, 92 in that era. And I just have to say, if I could go back to something at a time machine, it would be so fucking awesome to go back to see Forget about like going back to like KB or something. I want to go to Electronics Boutique because walking in and seeing there's YouTubers online that have like complete collections of games. Like I think that Lazy Gamer
has a ton of the box
all
games.
his PC games.
Yeah,
and that's awesome. But what's more awesome is imagine like there's a copy of Quake, but there's 10 copies of Quake, and they're all shrink wrapped.
So I want to talk about Quake at Electronics Boutique.
Yes.
So there's the boxed Quake.
Yeah.
Right? But Electronics Boutique, my introduction to Quake was on the counter. There was it looked like a CD, like a digipack. You know what I mean? Like a digipack CD. Like it's not a jewel case. It's like it folds open.
Yeah.
It's like cardboard.
Yeah. Yes. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah. So there's a bunch of digipacks of
I didn't know they were called that.
Quake Shareware. Mm-hmm. So just the first chapter. But the disc had the whole game on it.
Right.
But you could get it, and it was like a couple bucks.
Right.
And it had the multiplayer, and it had everything. And the coolest thing about that Quake Shareware CD is you could stick it in your CD player in your car or in your Walkman and listen to the music.
The soundtrack.
And the soundtrack's awesome because it was done by Trent Reznor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there's a lot of 9-inch nails boxes in the
all
game
over, yeah.
and stuff. But I remember getting that, thinking it was the soundtrack,
but it's the game.
But it's the game,
Right.
And it's the Shareware game,
Right.
And back then, we didn't really have like multiplayer games like we have now.
No.
My one friend got a beta to be a part of an online gaming system called M-Player. And M-Player had its own like console, and it looked like a purple TV, like a reddish purple TV. And they only supported specific games, but you could have a name and a profile picture and all of that.
And this is all to go online?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I played Quake multiplayer on M-Player back then.
That's cool.
And it was awesome.
I got a couple opportunities to play multiplayer Doom back then because I had some friends and we'd like hook up the modem.
Yeah.
Or however that worked. I don't even remember back then, but we did it, and I played a little bit of like that multiplayer Doom mode where you're fighting the other like you actually see the other like Doom guy. But anyway, so my experience is that I didn't have Quake,
right?
And I played it a little bit since then over the years, but I never really bothered to go through it. So I just recently got a Sony Trinitron VGA monitor, which is like the old computer monitor. And we just happened to be talking about Quake, and I was like, "Hey, I'll play Quake. That'll be perfect. It'll be combine. It's like the '90s again, and I'll put Quake on the monitor." So that's how I played it. So I played the first chapter of Quake on stream recently, and I was able to get through the game. I beat the game, and honestly, the first Quake, for the most part, actually, I liked it.
Yeah.
What I liked about it is similar to Doom. It's divided into little levels where there's exits.
Yeah.
Whereas Quake 2 is not like that at all. Quake 2 is like an open world, just giant map.
Yeah.
So coming into not knowing much about Quake at this point is probably like weird because I know like everybody's played Quake, so it's one of the ones I kind of missed. A couple of years ago, I did some streams of Quake Live, which I have to say I liked it a lot better. Like Quake Live was a lot more
Quake
fun.
Quake Live is based on Quake 3 Arena, right? So it has like the jump pads and the rail guns.
So I'm kind of all over the place with Quake. So for me, my first thing really playing a lot of Quake was Quake Live, and I was like, oh, this is fucking awesome. I loved Quake Live. So now coming back to the original Quake, I had fun with it, but I was like, not as much fun as I had with Quake Live. So I don't have the nostalgia glasses I have with a lot of games, because people say to me, Mike, how the fuck can you like Who Framed Roger Rabbit? That game sucks.
Right.
And I have to admit, I think it sucks too, but I like it because I played it when I was a kid. So when I play Roger Rabbit, I have fun playing it because I know how to play it. But yeah, the game sucks.
Right.
So that's me where that I definitely have nostalgia glasses.
Right.
You know, rose-colored glasses with that game. So coming into this like sort of fresh now, what I found was everything in the game was very brown and rust, like sort of like rust looking.
Yeah.
And I know that that's a stylistic choice, but I don't know that that's a look that I prefer. I like more colorful stuff. Recently, we did an episode on Proteus.
Yes.
And that game, very colorful. And I talked about the color in our video, in our podcast that we did about, you know, oh my God, you shoot an enemy and he blows up, the blood is purple, and now you got purple on the ground, and another thing, you know, we talked about the color. The rust color thing doesn't really work for me that much. I don't prefer that. I know a lot of people do like that, and that's cool, but for me, I wasn't too into that. The gameplay, I mostly found good. The enemies, I think, like when you play Wolfenstein,
yeah,
you know what it is. Mm-hmm. When you know what the theme is. When you play Doom, you're in hell. And there's demons coming at you. They're like literally, there's a guy, there's the pinky guy. He's like, he's a demon. Or the revenants are skeletons. It seems like stuff that would actually come out of hell. When I look at Quake, I'm like, there's a man, and then there's like a Yeti guy, and then like it's kind of like all over the place. And I'm like, what is the theme of this?
And there's a lot of knights and
knights,
hell knights. But you know what's interesting? A lot of the enemies that are in Quake later found their way into like the Doom and other things. Like the two games, you can't really take them apart.
Yeah.
Right? Like Doom and Quake have so much. Like, you know, Doom has like the double damage. Well, Quake, it's like it starts with a Q, so we're going to do quad damage. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you know what I'm trying to say about that? How it's like it's very clear what Doom is, and when my first time coming into Quake, I'm like, what exactly is Quake?
It really teeters between like this medieval and this high tech. There's like the little dudes with lasers.
It's very like industrial.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. So playing this game, this might have been my fault because I was playing it on an old monitor, but I wanted to experience that way. I found the areas in a lot of the game to be very like dark, and everything was sort of brown and whatever. But the gameplay I still found pretty solid and pretty fun. And then I played Quake 2.
Yeah.
Now, a couple people in the chat when I was playing the first game were like, you'll probably like Quake 2 better. And I was like, oh, great. They'll probably get progressively better as they go. And I expected that because I knew Quake Live I really liked. So I just thought they're just going to progressively get better. Then I played Quake 2. And I did not like it very much because I don't want to say open world, but like it's just one big gigantic map.
And it's like, where do you go?
So one problem I have is there's no map.
Yeah.
So in the first game, it's like these small areas, and I can figure out how to make it to an exit, and then you go to the next area, and it's this little area, make it to the exit. If you have a giant map, if you have a giant world, and you have no map, I could not fucking figure out where to go. And everything, all the walls in the game are all either gray or brown. And here's another reason I kind of had a problem with both of the games, I guess. And this is not the fault of the game. This is the fault of my streaming. I couldn't listen to the music. So Ryan was playing for me, the Trent Reznor soundtrack and everything, and it's awesome. And I'm like, I can't play it like that because of content ID and all that. And then the second game also has a soundtrack where you're supposed to put a CD into it. I'm missing all the music.
Right.
So it's like, imagine playing, all these games and you don't have the fucking music. It's like, it makes it boring.
My Quake 2 CD, my original Quake 2 CD is in my toolbox in my garage.
Yeah.
I don't know why it's there, but that's where it is. I'm just thinking about that. While we were talking, I opened up my toolbox because I needed something like for the set or something, and like the Quake 2 CD is just sitting
like a
in
bunch
there.
of screws and like a fucking Quake CD.
I'm like, how did that happen?
Yeah. So where I'm going with this is I have not had the best Quake experience, but a lot of that has been my fault.
And for your average person, Quake 2 was not very accessible because it ran like shit if you didn't have a video card. And back then, not everyone knew about like the Voodoo and the different video cards and things like that. So it was really hard. I'll tell you, Quake 2 with no video card sucks. And then you get the Voodoo 2 or you get the regular Voodoo or you get the TNT and video or whatever and play that game.
Yeah.
And it's like, whoa, because there's all this colored lighting and all this cool stuff.
I felt like it was maybe a sort of rare experience for me to go back and be able to play a classic retro game that I hadn't had the opportunity to play. And a lot of times I ask for that kind of experience.
Yeah.
I would be like, I wish I could take a pill and forget that Star Wars existed and be able to watch Star Wars for the first time. Like the real Star, like Empire Strikes Back or something.
Yeah.
So I got to kind of have that experience. I'm going to play Quake. I never played it before. And unfortunately, with like Quake 2, you know, I come back to it and, you know, I have no nostalgia for it. So it's interesting that I didn't like it. But I've had this happen to me before where I've had no nostalgia because I didn't grow up with a Sega Genesis. I had no nostalgia for Rocket Knight. But I played that 6 months ago or something and fucking loved it. It's one of my favorite Sega Genesis games. So does that mean that if I played Quake 2 when it came out, I probably still wouldn't have liked it back then, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting. Quake 2 for me, it's not like you're going to find anybody to play multiplayer with.
Yeah.
But Quake 2 for me was like the multiplayer game that we played until we got Half-Life. Because Half-Life blows Quake 2 away. Like you can't even, like, very, very much like Quake is like the first 3D first-person shooter. You get to Half-Life and you're like, wow, this is what gaming is going to be.
So I've played Half-Life as well now.
Yeah.
And that's another one I hadn't played for a long time, but I played through Half-Life and I love the gravity gun.
Yeah.
That's fucking awesome. And I forget if it's in the first because I played.
That's in the second.
I played the second. But Half-Life, Half-Life's a lot more fun.
Yeah.
Than I had a better experience with Half-Life than I did with Quake. Except I haven't. So Ryan's going to talk about the new remaster. I saw him playing a little bit of that, and that looks like I wish I would have been playing that. And yeah, I liked Half-Life a lot. The only thing, like, I didn't really give a shit about the whole like the end of the plot gets like weird. There's like the fucking guys hanging from like the pods, and like it's a very like weird game. But as far as the gameplay went, it was fun. It's a fun game, and
that game has reloading. Quake, none of that.
Yeah,
that game has the secondary. All the weapons have like a secondary. Yeah, which is kind of cool. There's a lot going on with Half-Life and Half-Life 2.
Right.
That's why people have like tattoos of it and like they're it's like a seminal title.
But I'm kind of like all over the place with this, I know. But like, let's talk about some of like the really basic stuff real quick. If anybody else is like new with Quake and everything, not that there probably is anybody, but the weapons in Quake. There's like a crappy shotgun you get, and then you get like a better shotgun.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know how sometimes I talk to you about how some games have good, like, I don't know if hit detection is the word, but when you like feel something.
Yeah.
It's okay, but like when I have the double barrel shotgun in Doom and I blow something away, that's like fucking fun.
Right.
And when I have the shotgun in Quake, it's cool, but it's like it doesn't have that same impact.
Yeah.
And So the gun I ended up liking a lot in Quake though was the nail gun.
Yeah.
That gun's really fun to play with. And I found myself whenever I didn't have like the ammo for the nail gun, I was like I want that's all I wanted to use.
And the electric gun is nothing compared to the BFG 9000.
Right.
Like it's not even a competition.
Comparison, yeah.
The other problem I have with the weapons in this game is the grenade launcher and the rocket launcher. A, they both use the same ammo, but B, the explosive range on them is so wide. I find myself not wanting to use
splash damage.
The splash damage, because like this is a game, especially in the new one. The new chapter where it's like it's hard, right? Because they're like, oh well, you've been playing this game for 20 years,
so we're gonna make it hard. Yeah,
you better freaking man up, you know,
right.
I find myself never it's very situational when you want to use your rocket launcher, and that doesn't feel good because I want my rocket launcher to be like, yeah, I got the rocket launcher.
Yeah.
Like when we played the Ascent and I got the rocket launcher, I'm like blowing people's heads off.
Right.
I'm like, this
That's
is
how
what
it
I
should
want,
be, right.
right? And in this game, I'm like, it's like fragile, right? I'm like, can I shoot this guy? Like the guy could be where that camera is.
Yeah.
You can't use a rocket launcher.
Right.
You blow yourself up.
Sure.
Yeah.
Which it should have that, but maybe
Yeah.
Yeah. I know what you're saying.
It shouldn't take like a quarter of your health away if you do it one time.
Right. I mean, but then again, there's going to be people that'll hear this and, they probably play Quake every day and they don't have a problem with it. But,
You know what's really cool about Quake? The secrets are really cool. Like for an early 3D game, there's secrets that involve platforming. There's secrets that are underwater. There's secrets where you have to look a certain way. And it's like an optical illusion. And you're like, oh crap, I can go that way. Like they're awesome. And that's my favorite part of the game. And you need to care about secrets so you have the health and weapons that you need.
Right.
And it's not like a level has one secret. It could have 7.
Oh, yeah. That's what I found because, I'm used to with Doom, you hit tab and the map comes up. With this, you hit tab and it's like a little screen that shows your inventory. So with that, I think it also would say how many you need of something. So it'd be like there's 0 of 7 secrets or whatever. Yeah. And I was never finding all of them. But you're right. Like sometimes you'd go underneath the water, you pop up and it's like, oh shit, I'm in a secret area. Or maybe if you kill certain enemies, a door will open and then you go through something and you find secrets in all these different ways. And you're right about that. Like the secrets really are important for this game. They make it that one of the things that makes it fun. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I played the new one, the remaster. And what's cool about the remaster is if you bought the original Quake on Steam years ago, you have the new one now. They didn't make you have to rebuy it.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
because I was going to mention that. I was like, didn't they do a remaster already?
Yeah. You know what's interesting? So there was a chapter added a few years ago called Dimension of the Past. Which is I think it's the 5th. Don't quote me on that, but it's the one before the one they just added. So they've already updated Quake once to run on more modern hardware, but that update wasn't as comprehensive as what there is now.
Okay.
So I played through the first chapter of the original Quake in the new engine, and I could tell you the lighting, the biggest improvement, other than resolution, I played at 4K, but the biggest improvement was the lighting model. Which
was one of my problems with the game. I felt like the original was a little too dark for me.
The lighting is able to have darks and lights without making things invisible.
But I want to throw out one point before I forget. This is one problem that I have is that I'm listening to what he says, but I get this thought in my head and I don't want to let it go.
Okay.
So one of the problems I have with these games is, so you go into a room and there's a box and it has the 9 Inch Nails logo on or whatever. And then you go into the next room and there's a bunch of boxes. And then you go into another room and there's a bunch of boxes, a cardboard boxes on the ground. And then you look at the wall and the wall is just brown.
Yeah.
And then you go into the next room and the wall is gray and brown. And then you're like, okay. And then you go into the next room. There's like a bridge or something, but the wall's like brown, and there's boxes, and then you go into the next room. There's a gray wall, and there's a brown wall, and there's a bunch of boxes, and there's no map.
Yeah.
So, how the fuck am I supposed to find my way around when everything's boxes and gray walls and brown walls? Now, what, like, not to be like the guy who like would redesign this game, but like maybe you go into a room and there's like a fountain or something, and you're like, oh, this is the room that has the fountain, and then you go into the next room and it's all mirrors or something. This is the mirror room. I will be able to remember the fountain room, the mirror room, or something.
Yes.
This fucking game, I get to a part and there's like a thing, a square thing in the wall, and you're supposed to put like a cube into it or something. I'm like, okay, I'm going to get the cube and bring it to the square wall and put the peg in the hole.
Yeah.
How am I going to if I go through the whole game and I get that, how am I going to find my way back? Every room looks exactly the fucking same.
Okay, so
and there's no map.
Computers were crappy before, and this was the first 3D game ever. So you're not wrong. But luckily,
what about Doom and Wolfenstein?
Well, they were not 3D in the strictest sense of the word. But okay. So Dimension of the Machine, the new one,
right?
The level design, it was made by the people who made the new Wolfensteins.
So the Quake is it's a different engine because Doom is like kind of faking it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's a good point.
Right. So the new one, made by the Wolfenstein people, they're making all the great Wolfenstein games now and all that. This game, like, they solved it. Mm-hmm. Because there's like every room has like set pieces.
Right.
And they have like there's like a gear because it's like a machine. There'll be like a satanic gear that's spinning, or there'll be like the lights come down a certain way, or there'll be like banners, or like this new chapter is like way better at that, and the way they've weaved it together, they design the levels in Dimension of the Machine like Doom Eternal levels are designed. Mm-hmm. Like there's like the platforming.
There's like memorable areas that you can differentiate.
Right.
Yeah.
And when you're like platforming in an area, you remember it because you did the jumps.
Yes.
Right? And you're like, oh, that's the jump.
Yeah.
Now I know. So like 3D shooter design is like way better than it was
in 1996.
In 1996.
Right, or whatever.
30 years ago or whatever. Like we've reached a point where
So I'm harping on a game that it's like one of the first of the genres, and
I don't want to say that either because I don't think you're wrong necessarily. Having played the remaster, even the original levels, I have a new appreciation for how the original levels are structured. Like, I feel like I could hold it in my head a lot better. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, I got to go over here. I got to do this. I got to do that. It made a lot more sense the second time around than it did way back then.
Most of my complaints that was thrown out, I want to be specific, was about Quake 2. Because, like I said, I didn't have any of those problems with the original game because every section was divided into little sections, so there wasn't that much to remember.
Right.
In each little area.
Yeah.
It was the second game that kind of broke it for me. Yeah.
But I could tell you the new one, Dimension of the Machine, like, will kick your ass. Like, if you want, like, a challenge.
Yeah, I watched you play a little bit of that, and that, like, I think I would like the new game better.
Yeah.
So just by looking. I don't know. I shouldn't say that until I played it, but from looking at it, I was like, I wish I was playing that one.
It's interesting. I'm hoping this year that game doesn't, like, get overshadowed. Because you kind of need to know about it.
Man, it's 2021 and there's different games every fucking week. I mean, we're doing this podcast. There's enough games that we're doing a podcast and talking about different games every week. I can't even keep up with these games on stream. I would love the same thing if it didn't get overshadowed. But you can say that for so many games.
But like 2 years from now, am I going to be like, yo, dude, did you play Dimension of the Machine?
No.
They're going to be like, what are you talking about?
They're like, what?
What are you even talking? Like, because when you go to buy Quake on the Steam store, it's like, yo, we got Quake, and you click on it, and then you have to like look through the news posts, and it's like 3 down, it's like, we had a sale.
Yeah.
Buy a Quake beanie on our shop. And then it's like, oh, we've released this whole new chapter with like all these levels and it's crazy.
Nobody's gonna.
And like, you wouldn't even know now.
Honestly, it's like we said, spoiler alert, it's August and we're saying this. By the time this comes out, I don't know if people are going to be talking about it.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. And like, this is like hours of entertainment.
It's going to be October. People are going to be watching that and be like, oh yeah, wasn't there a Quake thing back in August? Like, what?
Yeah. Somebody told me about that, but I couldn't find it. Because it's not like they changed, they didn't even change the banners on the damn store. I'm like, I gotta cover this thing. So I'm like sitting down on my computer, I'm like,
just looking through it.
I gotta cover this fucking game with Mike. Where the fuck is it? Right? It's like 2 a.m. Right. I'm like, oh, there it is. Right?
All for fucking Quake.
Right? And I'm like, oh, it better be in here. Because then you start it up and it's like, do you want to play? This game's been out for 30 years. There's like 70 versions. Like a box comes up. It's like, okay, and the top one's like, play Quake.
You know what else all this has me wondering is I play a lot of Doom mods.
Yeah.
A lot of those, I found that like playing like Brutal Doom and Project Brutality and stuff like that, like a lot of that shit now is like way more fun than playing like the real original Doom, because the improvements, there's just such cool guns and shit. And when you fucking shoot the enemies and they blow up into like all this blood and guts and and then you go back to the original and like the guy like drops on the ground. It's like night and day. So with Quake, since I'm like newer to it, I'm sure there's Quake mods and stuff, and I almost wonder if I'd be better off. Like, is there a Brutal Doom equivalent to Quake? Is there like a Brutal Quake, that's like better and more fun that I'd like better? And
dude, I remember as a kid, like going on message boards, downloading like, oh, it's The Simpsons, and you're like in the Simpsons house shooting people and stuff like that. That's cool. Oh, here's a game that tell us in the comments below. Have you ever heard of Sigil?
Oh, the 5th chapter of Doom.
Yeah. Nobody's.
Well, I
mean, John Romero made it.
I know, and he's making Sigil 2.
And he's making Sigil 2. Mm-hmm. Man, wouldn't it be great to have so much money that you could just make like, I want to make more Doom, and that's what he spends his day doing.
It's cool that he's doing that. I tried it.
Yeah.
And like I like the old Doom more, but I didn't dislike Sigil. I thought it was all right.
So you think that the Brutal Doom Project Brutality stuff is better than Sigil?
Yeah.
Oh.
But I did like Sigil. I'm not saying I didn't like it. It was fun. But there's you put fucking Brutal Doom mods with like different map packs and shit, and that's like, dude, I just played one just recently that was well, it was like similar, but it was Wolfenstein X. Dude, that one was fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I don't know. A lot of these, like, sometimes like the fans like put together really good shit because they care so much.
I love that this genre is still active.
Me too.
Like, remember there was a long time period when like the PlayStation came out and everything was 3D and we're playing like Croc or whatever the fuck we're playing,
Croc
right?
is shit.
Croc is shit, right? And I'm like, they're not going to make...
Is the Croc guy going to come out of the woodworks like,
yeah,
let me tell you a thing or two about Croc?
Spyro! Right? Yeah. So all these games are coming out and it's all 3D and it's whatever. And I'm like, are we ever going to get to play another like pixel game? It's like, boy, did we ever.
Yeah.
Right? Now... it's like coming around to the point where it's like there's all these shooters.
Yeah.
It's like, so nothing's ever going to go away. Yeah. Everything you saw is going to come back and somebody's going to love it and spend too much time working on like a better version of it. So, I mean, that's video games.
I mean, basically, right? Which isn't a bad thing. I mean, sometimes they're bad, sometimes they're good, but like, thank God, because I mean, it's keeping me going on Twitch, man. Like all these mods and stuff, it's
please
great.
Keep making this stuff.
Wait, so listen for a second. Yeah. So with somebody who streams a lot, some days if I'm gonna stream nearly every day, I can't always completely learn a new fucking game every fucking day of my life.
Right.
Like, it took me a little bit of time to figure out like how to play Valheim, let's say. So the fact that there's like Doom mods and Mario hacks and stuff like that, I can easily be like, oh, I'm going to throw on a Mario hack because I already know how to play Mario. Boom, I'm doing my stream. I didn't have to spend 8 hours that day figuring out this whole new fucking game.
Right.
Because I need to get on stream, because I want to play some game,
Yeah.
So... I take the time to learn new games, but I don't want to fucking learn a new game every day.
Right, because we talked about that before. It's like you need to make sure when you're doing something it's entertaining. Right?
Yeah.
So you have more steps. I mean, the game has to be a good game to take those other steps.
Right.
To make it fun, to make it entertaining, to
Right.
do all that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Another thing I liked about the new one was there's like a stage select. You're in like
That looked cool.
a sigil room where there's all the machine sigils, and you can do the levels in any order, like Mega Man. Like,
Yeah.
you know?
I guess that's true. Yeah.
Right. So, like when I started doing it, I picked like one way in the back. I'm like, let's see what they got. I'm gonna do a hard one. I'm like, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was hard.
It is hard.
Yeah.
And are those like actual levels? Are they like challenges? Are they like mini
They're
levels? They're like real levels.
They're level
Okay.
levels. Yeah. It's big. It's a full game. Like, 20 years ago, they could have released that as a game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm glad, in a way, like if I was doing all this on my own, in my own spare time, I probably would have just preferred just to have played the new game. But it's a good thing, I think, that I went ahead and played the early games because I had something to compare it to. Otherwise, I wouldn't have fucking known the difference. But I do feel like I missed out on the experience of playing it with the soundtrack.
Yeah.
Because it's like when you don't have the music, it really.
Oh yeah,
can
yeah. It's like
be boring.
what is happening?
Yeah.
I had one disappointment. So when you start up the game, they show you that they implemented Microsoft Azure PlayFab, which is like the multiplayer suite that they bought the company PlayFab for matchmaking and for all this features for multiplayer and interaction
To make the multiplayer better.
Yeah. And then I see my like avatars on the screen and they implemented all the stuff and they overlaid it. I click on multiplayer, nobody to play with. This game just came out like not that long ago. And there's nobody to play with.
That reminds me of playing Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
Like I was enjoying playing that when it like first came out. I liked chasing other ships down. When the game first came out, there was a lot of people playing that, and it was fun. You get in your ship and you're trying to like shoot cannons at the other ships and stuff.
Yeah.
And I do that, and then I didn't play the game for like 2 months or something. I log into the thing. You log in, you start playing the game. I get in the boat. I played the game for like an hour and a half. I didn't see one other fucking ship. Nobody was playing it.
That game was my biggest disappointment the year it came out.
And that was rare.
Because it was freaking cool. Sea of Thieves is freaking cool.
The water is like the best water I've seen.
The water's amazing. The characters are funny. It's all funny and good. And
it was really close to an amazing game, but not.
But there should have been more to do.
Yeah. Well, there was a lot of little things to do. Like there was like treasure hunting things and like, but it was, that could be a whole video.
Yeah.
Like, really.
Absolutely.
Like, we could talk about Sea of Thieves.
But like Sea of Thieves, when multiplayer games die, it's sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because like there's games now that I'm sure that are great that we would want to play, and there's just nobody playing them.
Yeah. I would like a game similar to that where you're just going around in pirate ships kind of like fighting each other, but people need to be online. Like if you don't have anybody to fucking play it with, you can't play it.
Yeah, I think that game needed stuff to buy with your treasure.
You know what was a problem with that game? It was I'm just going on about this and I'm sorry, but you have to fucking get like several people together.
Yeah.
And the hard part is getting your like enough people together
To do the big ship.
You need and if you don't have the big ship, if you're the little shitty ship and a giant ship does come up to you,
You're fucked.
You're pretty much fucked.
Yeah.
So it makes you play with more people. Like that's what they want because they want more people playing the game. I think
Yeah.
that was probably intentional. But at the same time, that's the thing that's also hurts it because real people can't. It's very hard to get. You might have. Because I know what people are going to say, be like, well, I don't have the friends to do or whatever. But let's say you are somebody and you have a lot of friends. Still, people have jobs. Or might be in school.
Right.
Or it's hard to get people together to fucking do that. So that was the real problem with that is like you can't play a fun game without like getting all your friends together. You know, they
agree.
needed to make the single player experience like better.
And there wasn't
like the one-on-one.
There wasn't anything.
Yeah.
It's like you can
They needed a ship that was like one
rowboat.
dude, like something one dude could do, like just like maybe like a fucking robot with a gun on it or something, because it's like whatever. Anyway,
Yeah.
I went way off
That's Sea of
topic with
Thieves.
that. That's Sea of Thieves. Though.
Yeah. But yeah, I didn't know I wanted this. You know, I'm like, oh, Quake. I liked Quake when I was a kid.
I think it needed to be done. It's good that they did it.
It's good because like the version before it on modern computers was like unplayable. Like weird boxes pop up on the screen, and it's
was that the earlier Steam version?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like if you do play original, it's like
It was like fucked up.
it's like flickering.
Well, you know what's funny is I played the originals on. I didn't get them there. I got them on GOG.
Right.
And they worked perfectly.
Yeah.
I've had pretty good experiences with GOG.
Yeah, because you get
Yeah.
a folder. It's not like you get like all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of good.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But that's Quake.
that's Quake.
Make sure to like and subscribe. I really hope you enjoyed this episode of Talk About Games. Be sure to click the bell. See you next week.